Most people think retirement fear comes from not having enough money. But what if you do have enough and still feel scared to spend a single dollar? What if your account is stable, your bills are covered, yet every purchase feels like a mistake? You check your balance again, and somehow it never feels safe. If that sounds familiar, this isn't about money. This is about something much deeper. My name is Clara Morgan, and today I want to talk about a quiet struggle that almost no one admits out loud: the fear of spending in retirement, even when you've done everything right. Let me tell you about someone I'll call David. David is 67. He retired 3 years ago. He has no debt. His house is fully paid off. He has a solid retirement portfolio, steady income, and even a financial advisor who keeps telling him the same thing: "You're fine. You can spend more." But every morning, David opens his banking app. He checks his balance. He reviews yesterday's transactions. He mentally calculates how long his money will last. Then he closes the app and feels uneasy. Later that day, his wife suggests going out for dinner. Nothing fancy, just a normal place. David hesitates, not because he can't afford it, but because something inside him says, "What if you regret this later?" So instead, they eat at home. Again. And that small decision, it doesn't feel like discipline. It feels like restriction. And slowly retirement starts to feel smaller than he imagined. Now here's the part most people don't realize. David's problem isn't his bank account. It's his identity. For over 40 years, David lived by one rule: save, don't waste, prepare for the future. Every raise he got, he saved more. Every bonus, invested. Every unnecessary expense, avoided. And that mindset worked. It's the reason he's financially secure today. But here's the catch. The same mindset that helped him build wealth is now stopping him from using it. And this is where things get uncomfortable, because no one teaches you how to switch from saving to spending. There's no retirement moment where your brain suddenly says, "Okay, now it's safe to enjoy your money." Instead, your brain keeps running the same old program: protect, preserve, don't lose, even when there's no real danger. Let's go deeper. Why does spending feel so uncomfortable in retirement? It comes down to three hidden fears. The first one is the fear of running out. This one is obvious, but also powerful. Even if the numbers say you're safe, your mind starts asking, what if something goes wrong? What if I live longer than expected? What if there's another crisis? And suddenly, every dollar you spend feels like a risk, not a choice. You're not buying something, you're shortening your future security. So you hesitate, even on things that barely make a difference. The second fear is more subtle. It's the loss of control. During your working years, money flows in regularly. There's a rhythm: earn, save, repeat. But in retirement, that rhythm changes. Now money flows out, and that feels very different. Even if your investments are growing, even if income is coming in, watching your savings decrease triggers something deep inside. It feels like losing control, like watching the foundation slowly shrink. So what do? You try to slow it down. You spend less. You hold back, because it gives you a sense of control again. And then there's the third fear, the one almost no one talks about: guilt. Yes, guilt. You've spent your entire life being responsible, being careful, making smart decisions. And now suddenly you're supposed to spend? On yourself? On things that aren't strictly necessary? That feels wrong, even selfish. So when you do spend, even on something small, there's this quiet voice that says, "Should you really be doing this?" And that voice doesn't go away easily. Now, let me pause for a second, because if you're listening to this and thinking, "That's exactly how I feel," I want you to understand something very clearly. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not bad with money. You are not being irrational. You are reacting exactly the way you were trained to react for decades. But here's the truth. Retirement is not just a financial transition, it's a psychological one. And if you don't adjust your mindset, you end up stuck in a life you worked so hard to escape. So what changes? How do you move from fear to freedom? It doesn't happen by forcing yourself to spend. That doesn't work. Instead, it starts with understanding one key idea. Your savings were never meant to sit untouched. They were meant to support your life, not restrict it. But here's what most people don't realize. Spending in retirement isn't about losing money. It's about converting money into experiences, comfort, and peace. And if you never make that conversion, then what was all that saving for? Let's go back to David. One day, something small happens. His granddaughter invites him to a weekend trip. Nothing extravagant, just a short getaway. David's first instinct is, how much will this cost? But then, something shifts. He pauses, and instead of asking, can I afford this? He asks a different question. What am I missing if I say no? And that question hits differently, because now it's not about money, it's about life. So he says yes, reluctantly at first, but during that trip, something changes. He laughs more, he feels lighter, he realizes he's been holding back, not because he had to, but because he was used to it. And when he comes back home, he checks his bank account again. Of course he does, but this time it feels different, because now he sees something else, not just numbers, but a purpose. And this is where your shift begins, not with a big decision, but with small moments. You don't need to suddenly start spending wildly. That's not the goal. The goal is to reconnect money with meaning, to stop seeing it as something to protect at all costs, and start seeing it as something that supports your life. Here's something simple to think about. Imagine two retirees. One has $1 million and never spends it. The other has less, but uses it to create a life they enjoy. Whom is actually richer? It's not the one with the bigger account. It's the one who feels free. But I know what you might be thinking. What if I make a mistake? What if I spend too much? That fear doesn't disappear overnight, and it shouldn't, because some level of caution is healthy. But there's a difference between being careful and being stuck, between being responsible and being afraid. And right now, many retirees are not being careful. They're being held back. So here's a gentle way to start shifting. Next time you hesitate to spend, and instead of looking at the price first, ask yourself, does this improve my life in a meaningful way? Not instantly, not dramatically, but meaningfully. If the answer is yes, then maybe it's worth more than the number on the receipt. Because at the end of the day, your time is limited, your energy is limited, and retirement is not just about preserving money, it's about living the life that money was meant to support. Let me leave you with this. Years from now, you won't remember every dollar you saved, but you will remember the moments you allowed yourself to live, the trips you took, the dinners you shared, the small joys you didn't postpone. And the real risk? It's not running out of money, it's running out of time while still holding on too tightly. So if you've been waiting for a sign that it's okay to ease up a little, this is it. Not to be reckless, not to ignore your plan, but to trust that the life you prepared for is finally here. And maybe, just maybe, it's okay to start living it.